Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
To the Richness of Lives podcast. And guess what? We're in Australia today. We're down in Melbourne in Australia, and our guest today is Helen Bauzon. And Helen has spent many years as a dietitian, and I mean many years, got lots of runs on the board, great results, and is a business coach. So she's combined those two rather beautifully to be very successful. Helen, a big welcome to you today down there in Melbourne.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks for having me today. And it's an absolute honor to be here.
Lovely to have you. And, we've just come out of a long weekend and we're still in it. And it strikes me sometimes that's about values and commitments. And you're pretty committed because you're here talking to me on a public holiday. That says something about you.
I love public holidays. I love Christmas breaks, Easter breaks. I just like breaks.
Here you are working. How interesting.
You don't get interrupted. You can do what you need to do. The phone doesn't ring. My world continues like yours on every single day.
That's awesome. Well, Helen, you've got quite a story to tell, especially around the growth industry. And what I mean by that, folks, is that we all have growth spurts. And you've heard me mention this before, but a growth spurt is when something happens and we grow. We don't always like it, but we spurt forwards. Mostly we go forwards. What is the biggest growth spurt you've had in your life thus far, Helen?
That's a huge question. It happened on reflection back in 2022. And it's always easy when you look back, don't you? It all makes more sense compared to when you're going through it all. But it was back in 2022. There were little signs, a good 15 years prior, but I chose to ignore it. And then the universe gave me a quick hiding across the ear and said to me, wake up. And I just, went really low and picked myself up.
My goodness, 15 years you had the flag.
I do believe so, and I just ignored it.
And then you got a big punch. Tell us about that. What happened?
The punch?
Yeah.
The punches.
Punches, yeah, plural. Let's do that.
Yeah. I used to not be able to tell this story without tearing up, whereas now I'm okay. And I choose to keep the explanation very brief to focus on helping others, what I experienced, to move forward with that personal development. And it was a real conscious decision. It was really tough. So fundamentally what happened working in the dietitian practice, that big C word called COVID hit and lots of lives turned upside down. And it was a very stressful time. And I think that stress made me become a bit of a punching bag. And the punching bag came across of disgruntled clients, verbally ringing up, being very rude, in email, forgetting that I had provided support and feeling that they were neglected. It was just confusion because over the 2 or so years, their procedure, the support that I was offering, the team were offering, started and stopped and started and stopped. So it's easy to forget. So yes, that was very unfortunate. And I got to a point that I just had a little bit too much. And what happened was I had a particular client ask for a service, which was really a paid service. And they just needed to pay the gap of $15. And they weren't very happy. And I went, okay, look, I can give you a refund. You can go see someone else and I can recommend someone. And they go, yeah, cool, no problem. And then I just sent a generic email out to my community saying, okay, guys, this is enough. I didn't give any details, but I just said, look, we all make mistakes. Let's just move forward and in a generic way. So the mistake I made there, for those that are listening, I sent an email with, I always say dear and their name comes up because you can individualize it. But I actually should have said, dear community. So some people obviously took it personally when it wasn't meant to. So that was a big mistake on my behalf. Long story short, the doctors I stopped getting referrals. So I touched base. It took them 3 to 4 months to communicate with me. In the meantime, I had found out that there was a little bit of a Facebook comment. So there was a Facebook in a private group, thank goodness. This individual was a little bit disgruntled, started a little bit of a troll against my name. And I didn't know that happened. So eventually I found out, went to this meeting, met the consultants, and we decided just to part ways, which was fine. And then I didn't know that this Facebook process had occurred. And would you believe I was consulting on my phone meeting? And I was accidentally included in an SMS. And it was the practice manager, myself accidentally included, and to one of the consultants bagging me, calling me a liar. I was so confronted. I went, oh, what's this? Went next day to the meeting and no one explained it. Still didn't know what the problem was. No one told me there was this Facebook concern.
Wow.
So I went in blind and I just went, look, this isn't working. So we all just part ways amicably, no issue. And then I don't know why. I worked out what happened, found out it was about a Facebook post because of the SMS that I was included in. I worked it out 2 days later. Silly me went to the post. Well, that just pushed me down really low. And then the silly thing I did was probably a month later, I don't know why, but the universe said to me, go back in. So I went back in and I saw another comment. We need to band together so Helen can lose her job. And I thought, I'm actually a consultant. I can come and go as I like. But I had chosen to step out. Anyway, I realized what happened. The practice manager assumed I had seen this post, but I hadn't because I commented prior to the post being made in the group. And anyway, I worked it out. I left a message on the practice manager's phone and I said, look, I've worked it out. It was you that sent the SMS. Look, all good. Don't worry about it. But, we'll just part ways. I told the consultants, I realized who sent it, how I was defaced, and how I'm not in the wrong. And I showed that I dated it. They were very apologetic, no problem. So after 2 years of barrage, and then this was the icing on the cake. And I went, okay, universe, I'll step back. So I stepped back and took time out, took a good 12 months, 18 months off. And I think for 60% of that time, I was quite teary. I didn't really cope very well. My husband wanted to come home and he looked at my eyes and he goes, oh, you've had a bit of a bad day. And I went, yep. And he said, oh, look, I can't relate to it. I said, you don't have to, but you've acknowledged it. That's all good. So you can get quite low even when us on the other side do the coaching. So when I coach, we coach from experience. But this was little snippets that happened over the 15 years prior. And I would always prove that they were wrong. And anyway, this was a real big across the ear. And I finally took note, took time out and I regrouped and I went, what can I do? How can I get out of this emotional rut? Well, I decided to resurface and I went to a workshop and I knew all this, but I was so detached and so low I couldn't think. And the name Bob Proctor came up. So I started Googling Bob Proctor and I knew about manifestation and blocking thoughts coming, but I disconnected. So I did that. So anyone that's listening, stopping those negative thoughts going into your mind so it doesn't fester and doesn't pass through the heart because then you've lost control. I remember I used to be driving, the negative thoughts would come in and I would just physically with my hand go, I was driving, so I couldn't use two. And I went, no, that doesn't serve me. I'm better. and no more. And I would physically manifest the thought going out of my mind, play the music, sing really loud for 30 seconds, change my state. And I probably did that at least 10, 15 times a day. I was determined that those thoughts weren't going to go through my mind. So the biggest personal development was physically going so low, crying all the time, and then getting back up. Yeah, I had to make the decision. I'm not looking back. I'm not thinking about all those thoughts anymore. And I just had to physically face forward and mentally do the work. So I consistently did that. I did breath work and I found that a huge release. And I just felt this energy and stress just leaving my body. So it was a 4-week program. I continued with the manifestation, the thought process, ice baths, being consistent with my exercise, and just blocking those thoughts out. They just weren't allowed to penetrate my mind. And I went, okay, what do I do now? So I spent that time behind closed doors, regrouping, and I'm thinking, I've done business coaching all my life informally. I've received business coaching and personal coaching to run my practice in a way where I can be a solopreneur, be a one-man show and not be inundated, do the admin work. I worked out how to do it, and I've helped so many people. Right. That's your next arm, Helen. You work as a dietitian. I love what I do. The universe is saying it's time for more, Helen. So I chose to stop flying under the radar and be open with it. LinkedIn. I learned how to use LinkedIn. I connected and collaborated with the coach on LinkedIn, Ed Zia, who got me through that, and accountability to push through some blocks. Huge personal development because I've never had to network like that in my life. As a dietitian, it's easy because you service the clients, the referrer is happy, and they continue to refer until they retire. That's actually quite easy. I find business coaching quite different. That was a huge personal development, getting through that discomfort, having coaching to get through that discomfort as well. And then I wanted to get back into the game of bariatric surgery. So the universe said to me, contact this particular consultant. So I did on LinkedIn, but I was ignored. And I think, well, not everyone uses LinkedIn like I do. You know what? Grab those 2 little things called ghoulies and ring the clinic. I rang the clinic and they were looking for someone. And I had a meeting. Within a week and a half, I was at reception. I remember the consultant comes and greets me at reception going, oh, huge personality, had a chat. Within 20 minutes, Helen, do you want to join the team? I said, I would love to. So I choose now to not ignore my intuition. I let the universe direct me because I've consistently raising my vibrations to attract what I want in my life. And you've got to be careful about that because I remember for years I was saying, you know, by the age of 52, 54, I'll have a caravan, be traveling, la, la, la. Well, I tried to purchase a caravan at the age of 50. Guess what happened, Mary?
You went awry.
You went awry. Guess when I got the caravan, Mary?
Where?
A month after my 52nd birthday.
Exactly.
But be careful what you put out there. What if I said by the age of
absolutely.
48?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
2022 was a huge personal development, professionally, personally, socially. And as a result, I have never been as happy as I am today.
And you look pretty damn good as well, Helen. That's for sure.
Thank you.
What a powerful message.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, what you're saying, let me just capture some of this.
Yeah.
What you're saying that essentially you were bullied
Yeah.
for several years until, well, you interestingly enough, you called it a slap. I called it a punch, like I'm talking about not only in the face, but, took you out of the game is actually what happened.
It did.
So it was quite severe. Let's not underplay this. It was severe. It was damaging. It was all of those things. And 18 months later, you rise out of the ashes. It's only 2025, Helen. That happened to 20. Like, it's not that long ago. I was putting the timelines together and I was thinking, my goodness, remarkable. And I think it's so lovely that you're talking about it today, because this is something that goes on that's very covert. Remember, there's covert and there's overt for those listeners listening to this right now. And I believe it's quite insidious and covertly going on. And you were able to bring it to the attention and turn it up to be overt, and people had to, I'm guessing some people had to take responsibility for what they said, what they did. But the interesting thing is that once you got off the floor, if you like.
Yes.
Speaking from someone who's been on the floor, curled up crying, I can relate a little bit, right? But you've dusted yourself off.
Yeah. And
imagine coming across someone like Bob Proctor, who's the father of personal development, or one of the fathers. Like, you've kept referencing the universe, and certainly the universe was pointing you in the right direction. Unfortunately, he's passed now, not that long ago.
True.
But my goodness, he's left his stamp on all of us, especially some of us have been around for a while. And how lovely. I love the way you describe that you needed to keep repeating the process to get rid of that inner critic. What do you say? 7 to 8, 10 times a day. And I love that, because, excuse me, that repetition changed everything.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
And it's very conscious, Mary. Even so, those who are struggling and maybe listening, you don't want to do this. I did not have the energy to do what was required, but I was fed up with where I was and I wanted more.
Just hang on. Don't say nothing. Just repeat what you said.
I'll try. For those who are really struggling, like I was, I didn't have the energy. I didn't want to do what was required. But I was so damn annoyed about where I was. I got so fed up of being sad. And I went, enough.
Perfectly said. I just wanted to capture that, because, there is a lot of people, and that I don't like making those kind of generalized statements, but there are people out there, let's face it, that don't have the energy, or don't want to have the energy, or feel that knocked about they can't just get up. And you, in spite of it, dumped that and said, hell yes, I'm going to rise up like the phoenix.
Absolutely. And I wasn't on my own. So obviously my husband, my kids, they knew what was going on. They were really supportive. If I was a little bit teary, they'll just come and put an arm around me. I remember once I was teary in the kitchen and my youngest would say, "You're having a bad day, Mama?" I go, "Yeah." I remember it. And he said, "Oh, just too many things going wrong at the one time." I go, "Yeah, a little bit." He goes,
How old was he then?
17.
Oh my goodness, how lovely.
Wasn't it? And he said, "You'll be okay. Do you need a hug?" I go,
wow.
"That would be beautiful."
How cool's that?
Yeah. And then in 2022, other colleagues where I worked were really supportive. So again, I wasn't on my own. But you've just got to go through that journey. And whether it's a professional avalanche of stuff, or just life throws too many things at you from different angles, it's still the same principle, isn't it, Mary? Of just getting knocked about a little bit too much and us allowing it to penetrate. Because sometimes we can control it and sometimes we can't. But it's how we respond is the key. And that's where we were talking about before. I chose to respond differently because I wanted a different outcome.
And let's face it, there's a big difference from reacting and responding, and how smart you were to respond. And, I was thinking about your 17-year-old, what great modeling for you and for him to see that sometimes we do have bad times in our lives, and sometimes we do need to have a bit of a cry. And how beautiful. The thing that stands out for me about what you're saying is that you created quite an elite cheer squad, didn't you? To
You
cheer
need it.
you on. Sorry.
Sorry, Mary, you need it. So I made myself accountable to a friend to exercise 2 to 3 times a week. And I remember I would be really sad. I would train and be really happy, and then I'll be really happy for the rest of the night.
The endorphins kicked in, eh?
Absolutely. But yeah, no, it was that would be what I call the largest personal development of my life, but always been interested, always looking how I can grow personally, professionally, learn different tasks outside work, keep the brain stimulated. But I've always been intrigued by it. It's an amazing because we all grow as people. I would love to you share it as well, Mary. I mean, we all grow, and if we're not growing, what are we doing? If we're not,
Dying mostly.
yeah, if we're not seeking something to stimulate us, life can get a little bit stale, and it can just become staler and staler otherwise.
I think that's true. For years, I've been saying if you don't feel you stretch,
Mm,
you're probably just, treading water. If you don't feel you stretch, then you need to get out and do something because when you're feeling you stretch, doesn't, and that you can attribute it to straight exercise or you like, but if you don't feel you stretch in your mindset, then you're definitely not growing. And one of the things about being an advocate, as you are, for personal development, and I am, is that I think it keeps the focus there. It may be different for you. I'll be interested to hear, but having that clear purpose, I was thinking about this today. Purpose comes into this, doesn't it? It's funny, a lot of these interviews come back to purpose. And I guess we all need to know why we're on the planet. But I think the focus and purpose is fundamental to how we live our life. What's your take on that, Helen?
100% agree. 100%. Otherwise, you don't know when to say yes or no to opportunities. It may sound really good, it may give you nice personal growth, but does it take you to where you want to get to, though? You can't say yes to everything. You have to say no.
Yes, absolutely. And I ran a workshop on the weekend, and I was saying to the participants, start being discerning.
Yeah.
And we live in a time where there is so much out there, a plethora of things that you can do. I think basically it's overwhelming. It's too much for most people. They don't know what to do. And then there's the shiny object syndrome where people feel like if they don't do it. And so I think that everyone can afford to be discerning, to choose well about how they want to be impacted. And that's it, isn't it? How do you choose, just like you were saying before, what sort of impacts do you want to change and remodel? Because let's face it, we're heading into the year of the wood snake, so we've got to be ready for this on a couple of days away from here. And I think that committing to growth, committing to purpose is a powerful way to live your life. And it sounds like you do. It's
Yeah, definitely.
commendable.
Thank you. And becoming more comfortable in being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Because it's short term. When you reflect, it's a short term compared to what you get out of it.
Say that again. What do you elaborate on that? I like that. What are you actually saying?
For growth to occur, it brings discomfort.
Mm.
And you have to be comfortable with feeling a little annoyed or uncomfortable so that you can become a better person, a stronger person. An
That's
example if I look at the dietitian practice, most of my work is around mindset coaching. And a lot of my clients are mums or empty nesters, and they're used to always putting themselves last. And I coach them to feel comfortable to say no in a way that's okay with them so they can look after their health. So when kids or partners consistently pull for their time and attention, I just say to them, try and see how you feel when you say, I can't today, but I can look into it next week.
yeah, beautifully said.
So they're not saying no, they're just putting a hold on when it suits them better because it's not life or death for the other person.
No, that's true. I think my
That's
saying is, oh, what was it? I need time to think about that. Let me get back to you. That's my line or similar. And it really works because it creates both parties time
Yeah.
to consider
Yes.
and also to have the space to even think about what might be their answer, not the answer that they're thinking the other person's wanting. Yeah, great differentiation there.
Absolutely. Even with work and engaging with a dietetic or a business client, we have a conversation. And then I say, I don't want you to commit either way. I want you to step away, spend 2 or 3 days thinking about it, see how you then feel, and then let's reconnect if you want. Because people change. People need time to reflect. And you were saying earlier that I wasn't, or we weren't reactive, but we were reflective. I have to tell you, my husband describes me as a firecracker sometimes. And I say, but you have to ignite the firecracker, Steve.
Yeah, that's right. Well, sometimes reaction can be really awesome. I mean, I'm very passionate, as you know, and so are you. And if we're going to go, we're going to go, that's right. There's no holding that down. And I think there's where the discernment comes in, Helen. There's some days, let's just respond with this. Hang on a minute. And the other thing that you touched on, which I'd like to go back to, was about raising your vibration. How
Yes.
important is that in daily life?
You won't move forward if you don't do it.
Because
You will just fall in a little dark hole, which can happen instantaneously because we default into what's comfortable. We can default into mulling.
what's that word you're using?
Mulling.
What does that mean?
You just fester and mull and overthink what's gone wrong. And then when you do that, then other negative thoughts come in because, oh, well, nothing will work. It never works. Why would time be different?
That's right. You attract. So what you're saying is you attract that. At my workshop, I was talking about being a magnet, for your clients. And this is one of those negative magnets, isn't it? And boy, does it capitulate into something big. It gets its own momentum.
Really easily. Really easily. And that's where, again, I come back to my example. And even when did I use it? Yesterday, I still use that principle of a negative thought coming in. And I just consciously focus on as often as I can to raise vibrations by blocking out those negative thoughts because it can tip me over very quickly.
And how do you raise your vibration? Oh, I beg your pardon. Go
Sorry?
on. How do you raise your vibration for the
I just,
listeners that don't know what you're talking about?
yeah, vibrations are meaning to keep positive thoughts in your mind that helps you get through tasks that you don't want to do during the day, but you want to because you want the ultimate result. And so how do I do it? A physical example. Very strange. I may have someone waiting for me to call them, but I will procrastinate to call them because I don't want to disturb them.
Even though they're waiting on your call.
Yes, because of history. We won't go down there. And I go, oh, Helen, just make the call. They're waiting. Okay. I don't think about it. I'm done. Or if it's a call that I want to make for a particular reason, and I'm going, and if I just take a step back or a breath, I consciously say to myself, Helen, just make the call. It's no big deal. Let's just move forward with it. And I pick up my phone and I just dial. Because if I say I'll do it after this tasks, I'll do it at 2 o'clock when I finish all my admin. Do you think I do it?
No, absolutely not. Not a hope.
So that's how and again, it's a conscious decision that I raise my vibrations when I'm exercising, when I'm on the treadmill, when I'm on the bike. I just talk the language of I am. Even if I haven't achieved it, I am so physically strong I can do whatever I want. I just start the statements with I am, and that puts you into a state of, oh, cool, I'm doing it. It diffuses the need to understand what's required to do it.
Absolutely. And it's a bit like, this may not be the best example, but I owned a motorbike once, a big one. And one of my friends, I was like, oh, I couldn't even pick this up. He said, don't worry, when you need to, you will. And I was like, oh, yes, Anyway, one day, yes, I came to grief and I was so humiliated, there the bike went up. And yes, that's the adrenaline rush. And it's, oh my gosh, and I've got the strength of, the giants. But it's also about raising your vibration in a heartbeat, isn't it?
Yep. You can change your state really quickly, breathing, moving, raising I describe it, your face as though you're looking over the fence, or I'm really short, I'm up to here on most people. So, looking up to see what's happening. It sounds really simple, but again, it's a conscious decision. Also, what I do to raise vibrations, which is an easy one, if I'm feeling flat, I never listen to sad music. I never watch a sad movie. I always listen to upbeat music and upbeat podcasts.
Right.
To surround ourselves with like-minded, keep your thoughts up. Some days I don't have to worry about all this. But there are instances that will knock me or knock anyone that's listening. Things will happen to knock us. It happens to all of us. How quickly do we get back up? It's a personal, practical choice. Work out what works for you. I've given you tips that I have found that has changed my life in literally 2 weeks. It was, Mary. Things just changed. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And I use a lot of it in a lot of detail when I need it, but I will always use snippets of it every morning and night.
That's beautiful, isn't it? One of my things that I teach, Helen, is that when you go to a workshop, you have fun, don't you? And you go, oh, this is really cool. You take notes or you listen. Come Monday, you're looking for the next workshop. Yeah. But unless we execute, which is what you're doing, and execute and implement, then we never integrate it. So therefore, we don't then learn from it and it doesn't become part of us. So that's beautiful. I love what you're saying. Yeah. And what you're doing is reiterating that to yourself all the time, which is going back to that repetitiveness. Mm-hmm. When I think of some of the things I've learned that have been vertical, just had to keep doing them, keep doing them, keep doing them, keep doing them. Beautiful example. Well, you look like a ray of sunshine. You look vibrant. You're so filled with life, passionate vitality, Helen. You're just a work of art looking at you today.
Thank you, Mary. You're very kind. And I would love to reciprocate that. When the very first time I met you, what did I say? I love the glasses, love the color, love the energy. We were so like-minded. We were the first time we met.
Right. That's absolutely true. And this is where seed was sowed for us to have this conversation today. So, Helen, let's end off. What's your word for 2025? Have you got one?
I have a bit of a statement that I've came up with.
Okay.
So it's for life for me.
Ooh, that's serious.
Other than a word, I have a statement, and it's on my mirror with big crayon.
Oh, no lipstick. You used crayon. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, crayon for mirrors.
Oh, I've got, oh, that reminds me, I've got a couple there.
There you go. My life, my choice.
Oh, I was waiting for a big phrase. That's fabulous. My life, my choice.
4 words. My life, my choice.
Beautiful. What a way to end.
It's
You know,
always
sorry, say it again.
It's always our choice. So it's always, I'd love people to take on board, if they just repeated it to themselves, my life, my choice. See how you feel.
Absolutely. I love that, because when you can feel it, there's some magic about that. My life, my choice. Well, you've given us lots of tips. I feel richer for this conversation, Helen. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
You absolutely are welcome. Be sure to watch further podcasts, The Richness of Our Lives. Always get that messed up. This is Mary Scott. Thanks for watching.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.